Welcome to a Mackenzie Institute Long Talk. Pao Fernandez Garrido is in España, and she is part of the World Fish Migration Foundation, knows lots about dams, river restoration, fish, and things like that. And she has been giving me a bit of an education lately. Welcome back.
Thank you, Alan.
Now,
nice to be here.
When I was a kid, I used to watch these nature documentaries, you know, and a salmon was leaping up to get up the river. And that's about all I know, other than the fact that there was always an industrialist who said, well, we're going to build a fish ladder or a fish passageway so the fish can get around the dam and everything will be fine. But then I started reading up on this and everything is not fine. So let's talk about fish ladders a bit. What are the different kinds of them to begin with? Because there's so many different terms: fish passageways, fish elevators. Just give us fish passageways 101, please.
Okay, so I like to call them fishways, but also people call them fish passage, others fish ladders. So you can call them three ways. I like to say fishways, not fish passage, because if you say fish passage, means that they are going to pass yes or yes. And as you just said, it's not like that. It's more complicated. Then a fishway can be, you can divide it in two groups, okay? Natural fishways and technical fishways. In natural fishways, you have three types. You can have a ramp. So if you have a little dam, a weir, a little dam, you can put a ramp. So with rocks and then you can also do like artificial channel that goes around.
Yeah, Pao, you're imitating fish climbing up, and they don't really have little legs. I know you know that. But how steep an incline can they swim up?
Okay, wait. Let's go little by little, because this is natural fishways. Then you have artificial fishways, which are usually made with concrete, and you have like different pools, right? And they can go through a little hole from pool to pool, or they can jump from pool to pool. It's like a escalator, like steps, right? You can have also elevators in very tall dams. You can have elevators. You can even have, I don't know the name in English, but you know, like a cage that they get trapped and they go in a cable. They go around to the other side. I'm sorry, I forgot the name in English.
No, so literally picking them up and carrying them mechanically across the dam. Sure.
Exactly. So you have artificial and natural fishways. So it depends. Oh, and sorry. And in artificial fishways, you also have two that are called denil. Denil are like plants, like it's very strange, but they can be very steep, and they are done with steel or wood. And there's like a big V where they can go through, and there's a lot of turbulence inside. Anyway, but there are a few. So for you,
let me add what little I know, that the fish, you know, we should have known, but the fish can actually get tired trying to swim up this, and that denil or the chevron is a place where they can go, you know, rest up, and it slows the water down, regulates the flow of water, right?
Exactly. But in fishways, as you said, it's not the panacea. It's not the, oh, we put a fishway and everything is solved. No. When you build a fishway, first you have to build a fishway completely, you say tailor-made, like made just for that weir. You cannot just copy paste, and that has been done in the past, at least in Europe. Oh, they put this fishway, okay, we're gonna do the same one. No, wrong. No, because each river has a different slope, each river has a different flow, each river has different species with different capabilities. So you have to make it very tailored, only for that, you know, just made for that weir, for that. And then when you make a fishway, you have three big challenges. First, that the fish finds the entrance. because they don't have signals to read. Oh, go this way, you know, go this way. It's in the left side of the river. They have to feel the attraction. So if you have flow over the weir, you have the flow over the weir attraction, and then the flow going out the fishway. You have two attractions, and the fish can miss the entrance, okay? So first has to find the entrance of the fishway. Imagine in a big river, how difficult is that? And then it has to want to be able to enter, because if it's not well designed, maybe the flow is too strong that it won't be able to enter, you know, or maybe only the strongest fish will be able to enter and not the weak ones, okay, the little ones. And then once it's inside, as you just said, you have to be able to give a nice passage so the fish doesn't get stressed and doesn't get exhausted and doesn't take forever. Imagine there are some fishways where the fish can be days. And that's terrible, because fish, when they are going to reproduce, they have like a time clock, you know, counting down, a countdown. And it cannot lose time inside a fishway for days, because then it won't come in the perfect day to spawn, you know? So you have three challenges. It's very difficult to design a really good fishway. Very difficult.
Well, Pao, I've also understood that the fish can get injured there, either because they're crowded and bump into each other and get bruised, or their scales
totally
fall, or
yes,
a rough piece of concrete, a rough piece of wood, and they can be traumatized, and we're doing as much harm as good, maybe.
you are right. You are right. So imagine if you design the hydraulics, okay, the water, how fast it goes inside, how much turbulence. Imagine like a washing machine. If your fishway, you design it wrong and you design like a washing machine, imagine putting yourself in a washing machine, right? You get there and then you start hitting yourself and you finish injured, you know? So it can happen, you're right. And of course, if it's made of concrete and if it's not smooth surface, it can get harmed. It's very true. So also the materials are important, but of course the hydraulics, how fast it goes the water, is very important. And if the fishway is very long, which is bad that it's long, but sometimes the dams are big. So if it's big, you have much more height to save, so you need to make it longer. Then you need to put resting places so they can rest, you know, for a little bit and then jump and go swimming up again, you know, but it's complicated.
Pao, would you have a guess about how effective fishways in general are? Like, do 20, 30, 50, 80% of the fish get through? Any idea?
All the fishways that are now built in the world, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you, that's impossible to know, because that really depends on the knowledge of the country, you know, on building fishways. I can tell you a comparison. For example, USA, they built pretty good fishways. They had really good designers back in the 50s and 60s. They have really good engineers, and their fishways are pretty good. And when you have an efficiency, you know, when you have an efficiency of 60, 70, 80%, wow, it's just already amazing. But for example, the little number of fishways that were built in Spain back in, you know, whatever, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I can tell you, I would say maybe 1% works or less. They're terrible. They are just made, they are made for dinosaurs. They are not made for fish.
And so you're saying that 1% of the fish could get through?
No. 1% of the fishways in total in Spain works well. So I'm telling you, like, maybe only the ones that were built 40 years ago, maybe only 2 works well, or 3 out of all the ones that we have.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying if we take into account the old fishways from the 19th and the 20th century, which were much less efficient, that you're harming or preventing or interfering with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the fish in the average fishway. Is that right?
Sorry, I didn't understand your conclusion.
Oh, okay.
Can you repeat again?
Well, you were saying earlier that maybe 50, 60, 70% of the fish got through. Many of them are
Oh,
inefficient.
oh,
And so it
okay.
sounds to me as if you took an aggregate guess
Yes,
that 20, 30, 40,
yes,
50% of the fish would be harmed or blocked or
yes.
not helped.
Okay, I get it now. Sorry, I get it now. So, well, it really depends. So, for example, as I tell you, the really, really good fishways designed back in United States back in the 50s and 60s, and nowadays they are very good, very, very good designers in USA. If they are very lucky, they can get 80% passage. Like wow! And of course, but that's only Alan. That's only in a fishway, in one barrier. People tend to think, oh, they pass this barrier, you have 80% of the fish pass, but we usually don't have one barrier in a river. We have many. This is the thing that people forget about. So you have 80% passage if you are super lucky, okay? And then next barrier, another 80%, and next barrier, another 80%. At the end, you barely have any fish at the end. That
Right.
has passed.
Now,
So,
there's another thing that as a layperson I've noticed. I mean, first of all, human beings are living longer and getting bigger. You know, in the Middle Ages, if you lived to be 25, 30 years old, that was your lifespan. The rare exceptions, but that was your lifespan. We are also much bigger. You know, 5'8", 5'10" was a tall person many years ago. And with diet and exercise and nutrition, we're all bigger. Same is true of fish. I spent my honeymoon in Newfoundland, and I caught a bigger than I can show you, a codfish by jigging, just putting a hook in the water and pulling it up, and I got a codfish. I have seen pictures of codfish that are bigger than young men. A sturgeon can be 6 feet tall and weigh 1,000 pounds.
yeah.
Are fish now smaller because of these inefficient passageways, and they can't get to and from their feeding and spawning and resting grounds?
That really depends, Alan, if you're talking about North America, Europe. Each country has its differences. I can tell you, for example, in Europe, sturgeon, you cannot find a big sturgeon anymore in the countries that they still have sturgeon. As I told you the other day, we don't have a sturgeon anymore in Spain. It was extinct, got extinct 30 years ago. And the big examples are almost gone because they cannot travel along the river to feed well. You know, imagine that you are kept in your municipality or actually in your garden forever. How can you go to better places to feed? It's exactly the same. You know, if you're between two barriers, two dams, and you are there trapped, you're not going to be able to go to better places to feed. So then you just die, right? So that's the situation of some countries. Other countries is because overfishing. Other countries, Alan, is because we only think now in this conversation, we are only thinking about upstream passage. You also have to think about downstream passage. People forget about that. What happens in the downstream passage? If you're a bigger fish and you have to go through a turbine, if you're bigger, it's pretty probable that you will get injured and die. And that happens a lot, especially in Europe with eels. Big eels are, how do you say, chopped, you know, big eels in the turbine. So at the end, you only find small eels. So it really, you cannot really say one reason, you know, it really depends on the situation, on the river, on the country.
Now, a restored river, which means a removed dam, if that river now means it's passable by a number of different species, are there any that you would single out that maybe couldn't get up the river? Like, in other words, a river that a salmon or an alewife can get up, can a sturgeon get up that river? Or are there generalizations you can make?
So you're telling me that if a river is restored and now a salmon can go up, is that river restored? Is that your question? Now, is it just...
And let me be more specific. I can't find any research around the world that tells me what a sturgeon can do. And maybe it's because of what you talked about, combination of overfishing and limiting access to their habitat, they are smaller, and there's no research on what they can go up. I'm interested in whether sturgeon can thrive in a restored river and get back to their huge size of 6 feet in length, because they're also they're very powerful fish too.
Yeah, I get it. You're talking about the resilience. So you're talking about if we restore a river on time, if we can get back what we had 200 years ago, 100 years ago. And yes, okay, yes, I can tell you that if you restore well a river, they will come back. Yes, but that means in many aspects. So imagine that you restore a river in access, so it's not fragmented anymore, and you have the access. Okay, but imagine you give the access to the fish, and now it can go all along, but then you have pollution. Those pollution is also a barrier, or you have overfishing and you don't control it. Then you are never going to get that fish on that size anymore. But if you do the right thing, this is what you're telling me, if you restore and give the chance, you know, for the fish to get that big, could it happen again? Or because it has passed 100 years, it won't? It will come back.
Well, and again, I'm a lay person, but I'm thinking as a source of food, a 6-foot sturgeon feeds a lot more people than a 3-foot sturgeon, and the same thing with a codfish that is maybe 4 feet long versus 1 foot long. I mean, there's just more living matter there, isn't there?
Yes, it's true. It's a chain. It's a chain. So if that big sturgeon is not going to get so big if it doesn't have enough bait, enough nutrients, enough fish to eat, right? Exactly, that's true. But usually the smaller fish are the ones that recover faster, right? Because the bigger you get, slower you get to the reproduction phase, and the longer you take to get big, you know. So usually the population of smaller fish, the bait, recover faster. So it's a matter of giving the chance to you know, to control fisheries, to control pollution, to control fragmentation in time. What I mean is that I always say the same thing. We are in some countries, you are still in time. In North America, you are still in time because you haven't reached the not turning back point. There is a moment where it's too late and you cannot recover anything, okay? Like in Spain, we cannot recover any sturgeon. How? There's no examples. There's no, you know, there's nothing. So there is a point where it's very difficult to recover anything, and it will disappear, yes or yes. The good thing in North America, I don't know if you have seen the numbers of the Living Planet Index that we published this week. Actually, we did publish this week a special report, Living Planet Index, only for migratory fish from freshwater species, the first time ever done. And the numbers are really shocking. And in Europe, for example, we have a decline of 93% of our freshwater fish species, 93% of decline. North America was one of the best. So you didn't have such a huge decline. But this is the thing, that if you get there in time, you will recover, as you are saying, you will recover your fisheries, the size of your fish and everything.
Perhaps one more perspective, and that is economics. Everybody wants to talk economics. There's always an industrialist, there's a civic booster, you know, there's the Board of Trade and the Chamber of Commerce and so on. Some of the research that I've seen says that the economic value of biomass, meaning living things, fish, etc., that come back and are restored, is greater than the value of the dam and the electricity, if that can be measured. And of course it can be measured. We know the value of that. And for example, tourism, sport fishery, etc. Now, my perspective is, when I spent my honeymoon in Newfoundland, I went there to look at cod and whales, not a dam. And that's usually why people travel. Have you seen any research about that?
Yes, Yes, it's true. And again, there's not many studies done. It's a pity that after dam removal, not many people have followed the economic benefits, but there are. And the ones that have been done are amazing. For example, again, I tell you my favorite case that I told you the other day about the Kennebec River restoration. And it's just amazing, the numbers. You just have to see the taxes that are being collected in the towns because of the opening the fisheries of alewife. The other day I said shad, but I was wrong. Sorry about that. I made a mistake. It's alewife. The huge recovery it's on alewife, because alewife fisheries have opened, so that gives taxes to the town, and then those amazing huge fish population are bringing a lot of birds. Now they have an increase of bird watchers, ecotourism to the area. So you have a bunch of, and sport fishing, of course, I'm not even going to that. So, and kayaking, there was no kayaking, and there's now kayaking competition. So there's so much more, but I want to point out one thing. People always think about, oh yeah, there might be economic benefits after the dam removal, but people don't think about during dam removal. And I can tell you, the government from Massachusetts, the Department of Restoration in Massachusetts, they have done 3 studies already in different years, 2012, 2013, and 15, I think, where they discover that their money they put on river restoration projects in Massachusetts, they say that the economy created through these projects, it's equal or greater than road and bridge building. And the jobs and the money that it generates, they call it a restoration economy. They even put a term. So we always think about, oh, the project that gives money, it's just roads and bridges and blah, blah. No. It also gives jobs to remove dams. It's just like building roads. So we have to think about that. This is very important too. It gives jobs and very economic benefits.
Yeah, what I've seen is for a small dam, 2,000 hours of work for 25 people, all buying lunch, using diesel fuel and gasoline to restore the river. Boy, that is a lot of work and a lot of economic activity. Pao, muchas gracias again.
Muchas de nada.
Anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I would love to say that I hope that people in cities, we have forgotten a little bit what's a river, right? In North America, not that much. You are still very connected, but in Europe we have. And I just hope that we go back. We go back to the river, we connect again, and we enjoy our rivers and we restore them all over. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Any views expressed here are not necessarily those of the Mackenzie Institute, its speakers, sponsors, or supporters. But the Institute is dedicated to fostering public discussion, debate, and education about security matters. Google the Mackenzie Institute to join the discussion. The Mackenzie Institute is grateful to its sponsors and supporters. Some of our short pods and long talks are a result of the support of Heathbridge Capital Management Limited, the National Post, and Dundurn Publishing.